Hi, Debji.
है ना 30
Yeah, hi. Right.
Hi.
हाँ तो उसका 5.3
Just
का ग्रेड मिला है और
5 minutes.
डीपी
Okay.
ओके है।
Hey Priyanka, hi Devjit. Pant is yet to come, right, Priyanka?
Yes, sir.
Hey, hey, hey. So very sorry, I was on another call.
No
Just
worries.
No problem.
Hey,
okay.
hi.
Yeah, hi.
Devjit or Priyanka, Devjit, you can come on call, some on
Hello,
video, please.
Debji.
Yeah, hi.
Thank you. Abhirup, hope
Mhm.
the video and voice is very clear to you, right?
Yeah, I'm able to see.
Okay. And I think you can go ahead with Devjit. Thank you very much,
Mhm.
Abhirup,
Thank you.
Devjit. Thanks,
Sure.
Thanks for the
Priyanka.
good.
Bye.
Yeah,
Thank you.
sorry again for getting late.
No worries, no worries.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, so Devjit, so you have around 6+ years of experience, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So mainly into backend.
Yes.
So as I see Java, Hibernate, Spring Boot, and Oracle Mesa. Okay. Okay. So your current thing is in Wilson Fargo, is it? Okay. For that visa. Okay, so let's go by your current project, and then maybe like you can just explain, like, because I see that most of your things are in Java, Spring Boot, and Hibernate itself, right? So you can just just maybe go over the latest project, and then just give me a brief about what it is all about, and then maybe your role and the tech stacks involved.
Yeah. So basically, I'm having around 6.10 years of experience in IT sector. Currently, I'm working with ENY from past 2.10 years and worked
Mm-hmm.
across three clients. So current client is Wells Fargo. So here actually I work with the soft check deployment process. So basically, whenever any developer commits any code changes, so before going for real
Mm-hmm.
deployment, so there will be like a soft check which will check for vulnerabilities. It will scan all the high severity, medium severity counts, and if it is like zero, then only it will be allowed for further enhanced express lane deployment, or else it will be like a normal lane deployment, and it will come back to developer again for making the changes so that the count of
Uh-huh.
vulnerabilities gets reduced to zero. So for
Okay.
that sake, we have created our endpoint for that. So that is for Wells Fargo which we have created.
Okay. So basically, this is like your maybe something similar to your static code QL tools, which we find, right?
Yeah,
So which
so
is
they are calling our endpoint, so it will return the
mhm.
status basically. So whether it's eligible to go for deployment or not.
Okay. So basically, that's what like your endpoint does a kind of a validation on
Yes, yes.
the whatever. Like let's say someone tries to merge a code or something, and then
Hmm.
they call your endpoint with the
Yeah,
code changes, and then you run a scan of
yeah,
like
because
scan over the set of
there are a
changes.
lot of parallel deployment happens. So few fails, few got succeed. So it will be like a
Hmm.
havoc gets created. So to avoid that,
Okay.
this process gets created.
Okay. So in this one, basically, like, can you just brief me about like how your design is, like on what basis do you do the validations and all? Just maybe one example, taking one example.
Yeah, so basically whatever changes they have done, so it will load internally what all counts
Mm-hmm.
are there for vulnerabilities. It will be stored in one file. So we are just
Mm-hmm.
fetching that file data, JSON file data,
Mm-hmm.
whatever they are having. We are fetching the
Mm-hmm.
count of those vulnerabilities. So it will be segregated based upon the app adherence scan and vulnerability scan. So app adherence is like
Mm-hmm.
save one, save two, and vulnerabilities containing like black duck, secret scan, check marks, cloud MMR. So those things will be there. So it will
Okay.
calculate counts based upon certain conditions. So like high
Mm-hmm.
severity count is greater than zero, and critical severity count is greater than one. So if that condition satisfies, then the status becomes failure. So like that, we have written a condition and returned it back. So if that condition gets failed, then one of the status becomes failed and overall status becomes failed, and then it returns
Mm-hmm.
back to the developer. So like that we are doing.
So like that's what like I just want to maybe dig slightly deeper into this one and then try to understand with maybe an example wherein like I'll give you like what I am trying to understand. Okay, so so for example, if you see all these tools that we have, right? So along with GitHub, we run the GitHub actions and all. So there also, like, we have certain things like, uh, I mean, the static code analysis.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in that, maybe just taking a simple example, like let's say if you have an unused variable, private variable, which is unused in a sorry, not just private variable, maybe a method specific method local variable, and then that is not used. So the algorithm, whatever is there in the GitHub and all, right, so code queue, so that will be able to detect that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in your case also, like, how does the algorithm work? Like, you have a set of rules. Okay. So the rule definition may be something like, let's take equivalent of this only, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the rule definition may be something like that, identify unused variables, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you have to implement this one, so how will you do it? So in the code, that PR or whatever the whatever request, transaction request comes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in that, what will you scan for, and how will you match it to the rule? So how will your implementation be like?
Yeah, basically, they are storing the counts in those JSON files basically. So we are fetching those
Uh-huh.
counts, and based upon that, we have written the logic. So how
No,
that count
counts
is
as in, no. I didn't understand. Like, count as in what count?
so severity count. So if you go through the
Uh-huh.
sonar cube, there will be multiple severities will be there, like high severity,
Okay.
critical severities. So there will be
Uh-huh.
specific count for that. So if count is like two,
Okay.
that means two critical severities found within the code,
Uh-huh.
newly written code.
Uh-huh.
So that means it crosses the threshold, so our endpoint will reject it. So we are just taking the
That's
count
what, like, so
and
basically that's what, like, in the so are you doing the validation logic inside your endpoint, or the validation logic is external and you are just playing around with the count
and
of
just
whatever is the
taking the
frame?
count based upon that we are allowing or not allowing.
So what about the validation? Like the count that comes, that okay, there are two severities, two critical severity issues. Okay, just taking an example. So, oh, like, how do you arrive that number, that it is two on this piece of code change?
Actually, in our part of code change, that thing is not there. It is already been calculated
Okay.
at a Wells Fargo site, and then it is being stored in
Okay.
the file. We are just
Okay.
taking the data.
Okay. Okay. You're basically processing the data, and on top of that, you're doing. Okay.
Yes,
Fine.
yes,
Fair enough. Got it. Okay. So you are using microservice for this one. Like, you have a REST-based microservice for this, is it?
yes, yes.
Okay. 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 So in your microservice, basically, how do you maintain the health check
So we
of
can
your
make
microservice? Like,
yeah. So for measuring the health metrics, so we can make use of actuator for that. And with the help of actuator, there can be multiple URLs to check the health metrics for that. So basically,
mhm.
if it is like slash actuator slash beans, so we can see like how many beans are available in that particular endpoint. And then
Okay.
yeah, so there are multiple metrics for that we can see for each and every
Mhm.
metric, like what is the count and all.
Okay, so now let's say I have a requirement in which I have two services. Okay, one is the, or like, let's say service one, or let's say your service only. Okay, so your service is maybe internally calling another service. Let's take the same example that you gave, right? So in your service, you're doing the calculation based on the count that is received, right, from, let's say, another service which is already in the Wells Fargo infrastructure, right? So you are kind of like, as I'm assuming, it may not be the exact case. I'm just making up an example. So just give me a second. Uh, Just 1 second. Yeah. So now let's say where were we? Okay. So now let's say your service is calling the other service. Okay. So now we are having two services which are interdependent, right? So you have your service, which may be acting as a parent service, which internally calls an auxiliary service to get its data. Okay.
Mhm.
So now let's take a case in which the second service, which is the one which is giving you the count based on certain inputs, that service is termed as critical in your application. Okay.
Okay.
So your application health depends on that particular service's health.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes.
So in your health check, how will you modify or where will you implement this piece that it constantly checks the health of that particular other service, and if that's a particular service is down, then your health also should return down.
Okay. So we can internally check that. So it will be we can specify that in the YAML file, and we can add
Mm-hmm.
the configuration for that actuator so that it will enable
Okay.
configuration for both the microservice, and then
Mm-hmm.
we can make it fault tolerant basically. So
Mm-hmm.
uh, we can make use of like circuit breaker design pattern. We can make use of to
Mm-hmm.
see that whether it's fallback mechanism we can make use of to check like how many times we have to call that microservice to get the data. So we can have like number of retry attempts as 3, so it will try 3 times if we are getting the data or not. So if you are not
Mm-hmm.
getting the data, then it will just return back the default response message like that microservice is down due to critical issues are there.
Mm-hmm.
Then the health status can return with some status code like 404, or we can return with some message with some status code like that.
Okay, so this one basically you are telling that you will configure something in your application YAML, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
now let's say if I have a custom logic, it's not just straightforward check of that particular thing's health. I want to customize how frequently I want to do a polling. Okay, maybe I want to do it in a geometric way. Okay, so every 2 seconds, then 4 seconds, then 8 seconds, then 16 seconds, and again modulus. Okay, so when it goes to 32, again it's like modulus 30. Okay, so again it becomes 2 seconds, 4 seconds. So this kind of some custom logic for your frequency. So if you're going through that approach of defining it in the application YAML, okay, so
Mhm.
or application properties, so how will you achieve this kind of a use case? Or is there any other way to achieve it? Or how will you achieve it basically? How will you implement it?
For that we have to write our own logic in the service layer basically.
Uh-huh. So what will you like? How will your annotations be like, and what will you like do? Like, is it just adding it as a configuration? Will it pick, or what basically do you need to do in terms of like to have it as a health check, custom health check?
I think we can create our own bean within the configuration class, and we
Mm-hmm.
can add our own bean configuration based upon how the health metrics would be made, like how customization can be made. So
Mm-hmm.
we can add at the rate configuration over a class, and we can have at the rate bean over a method, and then we can write our own logic to dictate Spring Container, like how the dependency injection will be there, and
Mm-hmm.
how to measure the health of it, because it depends upon the bean basically. So
Okay.
if it is injected but is not working, then it will be like a different scenario. So in that case, some message with status code will be reflected. So we can write the logic within that configuration class basically.
Okay. So if you just define a bean, do you think that it will take care of it? What will your bean return? That method which you are annotating as bean. What should be the content of that method? Will you write the logic there in that method which you are annotating as bean?
So I'm not aware of that basically.
Okay, sure. Okay. So as we spoke about bean, right? So what exactly is a bean?
Bean is basically a class which gets injected by the Spring container at runtime. So
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
Bean basically it helps Spring container to identify like which all classes that particular Bean can be injected by auto wiring
Mm-hmm.
it. So yeah, because we are doing the inversion of the dependency. So Spring container will create the object and will inject it. So yeah.
Okay. So basically, the 1 second, just 1 second. Yeah. So basically, as you told, like the bean will be you told like bean will be an instance of class, right? So so what is in or let's say in normal context only, like what is the difference do you think is between a bean and a pojo?
A POJO is like a plain old Java object. It will be like a
Uh-huh.
DTO layer. So basically, with the help of that, it will contain the data, and it will means basically with the help of that we can transfer the data from one class to another class, and
Mm-hmm.
we can process the data. So for that
Okay.
purpose, we can make use of that. So let's suppose there
Okay.
are I need five fields from three different tables. So I
Mm-hmm.
can't carry forward the table data. It will be like a security issue will be there. So we can copy the data into a DTO, and then we can transfer it few data from one table, few data from another table, combining in to another classes like that for
Mm-hmm.
transferring purpose. But bean is just an instance of one particular class which will be injected by the Spring container.
Okay. So how different is it, like as you told, like if you have a DTO, data transfer object, right? So I did not get that part in which you told that it will be more secure. So irrespective whether you wrap it up as an object, it can be hacked and you can extract the information, right?
Yes, yes.
Or
No, I'm
basically,
telling with respect to entities. Like entities
okay.
will be having the real data, so we can't transfer the all the column data as it is from
Mm-hmm.
one class to another class. So I don't want
Okay.
all the column datas. I want few column
Mm-hmm.
data from three different tables. So each
Okay.
table will have 10 different columns. So there will be 30
Okay.
columns. So I
Mm.
don't need to
Okay.
transfer all. So
Mm-hmm.
that way we can store it. We can create our own DTO, and we can
Okay.
customize like which all fields we want. Like that we
Mm-hmm.
can
Okay.
transfer.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Um, okay. So now, okay, let's say you have this same, let's consider the same Spring Boot application. Okay. So which you have developed. So in that, maybe I need to include an external jar. Okay. Let's say I have built a library. Okay. Which will do some additional validation. Okay. You need to use that. Okay. So in your application, how will you include that? In a Spring Boot application, how do you include an external jar?
Yeah, so some other application, if the jar is being created, so we can add it into our dependency basically. So in
Mhm.
pom.xml, we can add the configuration for that, so that it will
Okay.
involve all the changes which has been done in that particular util class. So there is a separate
Mhm.
package. Suppose it's created date util kind of thing. We have to use it. So we can put it in the pom.xml with the
Mhm.
configuration, like what is that
Mhm.
package name with the class name, everything we can pass it over there and we
Mhm.
can use it.
Okay. So now if you just include it in the pom.xml and then if you build and then start the server, do you think that the package will be picked up or like a jar will be picked up?
Yeah, means it will download the dependencies.
Mhm.
There is auto configuration feature, so it will download all the dependencies with respect to that particular package. What all classes and
Mhm.
interfaces data is there, it will download those data, and then we can
Okay.
utilize those methods into our class by auto-wiring those classes. We
Okay.
have to
So
import
do
as
you
well.
do you think that just auto wiring it? So my question is like this. So how does your Spring container know that I have to pick things from this particular jar?
So we will be making use of that class references in our code, right? So that
Uh-huh.
particular class is not written in our package. So that's why we
Uh-huh.
are making use of that jar into our
Uh-huh.
project.
So now
So
let's say I have my Spring. Let me put it in a like simpler way. I have this first application, okay, Spring Boot service, which is having com dot my app dot test, okay, and my the jar is com dot my second app dot test, okay. So both have different packages. So now, do you think that if I include it directly, it will identify, or let's take it this way, like how does the component scan work in Spring Boot?
we can have annotation like added component over the class to
Mm-hmm.
dictate that that particular class is marked for component. So Spring
Mm-hmm.
Container at the runtime will scan for all those component classes, and then it will
Mm-hmm.
inject those dependencies basically.
How, where does it start scanning from?
Uh, Basically, it will check from the main method basically, and then it will go
Mm-hmm.
through the controller, then other layers one by one. It will go.
Okay. So now this component scan will be able to find the other jar also, is it automatically?
Uh, Yeah, so I think we can put added component, and then we should set the field values for that.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, we should tell the Spring Container that this class needs to be injected at runtime.
Mm-hmm.
So we should mark.
That anyway will be taken care by AutoWire, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
That component scan is already there in the Spring Boot application, so it will
Mm-hmm.
scan for all the components. So if components are there, whatever components is there, it will scan it actually
Okay.
at runtime.
Okay. Fine. So now, um, okay, let's discuss a bit about persistence layer. Okay. So now let's say like you have used JPA, right?
Mhm.
So what do you think is the advantage of using JPA? Let's start with the theoretical question.
Yeah, so JPA is a Java Persistence API. So with the
Mm-hmm.
help of that, there are various features which are there. Like we can save the data in DB. We can fetch the data with the help of methods like find by
Mm-hmm.
ID, find by certain column name. We can fetch the data directly, and
Mm-hmm.
we can pass the entity name with the data type of that primary key, and then it will fetch the data based upon that whatever we are defining in the method, and then we can write a direct query. We can write our own query over there, and then we can process that logic based upon the
Okay.
query.
Okay. So uh, just focusing on this at the rate query as you mentioned, right? So the idea of JPA is to like do away with writing our own native queries, right?
Yes, yes.
So if you are writing native query in your application,
Mhm.
so why use JPA?
Actually, native query, if you are using, then it will directly call the SQL query basically. So
Mm-hmm.
if we are using Hibernate queries, then it will be much faster basically because it internally writes the query and fetch the data. So
Mm-hmm.
native query actually it reduces the performance because
Okay.
we are directly communicating with the database tables.
Don't you think that will be a faster approach than, because JPA is actually adding a layer of abstraction.
Yes, yes.
Here you are actually, native query is more like you're taking the query, just getting the connection and executing the query. So don't you think that will be faster than using JPA?
Yes,
Mm.
but if we are creating RTO and then we are mapping it with the database layer, uh,
Mhm.
then we can make it more class specific,
Uh-huh.
and
Okay.
it's actually best practice to go for writing Hibernate queries within the query
Uh,
annotation rather than
so
writing the query. Actually,
okay. So now let's say your application is heavily bombarded with requests. Okay. And then you see that the bottleneck is your JPA layer, right? So there uh, the queries that are getting generated by JPA. Okay. So that is not good enough to like meet your requirements. Your performance is getting a hit.
Mhm.
So in that case, you will have to write native queries, right? So
Yeah.
if you have to, I mean, with let's say more complicated joins and with SQL tuning and all those things, right?
Yes,
So
yes,
those kind
yes,
of queries.
yes, yes.
So now if you are doing it that way,
Mhm.
then you are beating the whole purpose of using a JPA framework.
Yes, yes.
So if you are using only for let's say the basic ones where you have like the normal queries, right,
Mhm.
which needs to be taken care. So then the JPA is not, I mean, giving you much like lot of advantage, right? So it's like just another tool where you are just utilizing because a few of the queries you need not write. So
Mhm.
my point is like in case you are able to write complicated queries and add it as native query, and writing simpler queries will be even easier, right?
Mhm.
And if you're directly using native query, it is a lot faster also. So why use JPA? So that point which you told in terms of like ease of usage, it is more model driven and all, that is fine. But when it comes to performance, don't you think that this route is a lot faster?
Yeah, that way is faster. So
Mhm.
uh, basically, if you are writing with Hibernate query, we can pass certain parameters. So that is which is dynamic in nature. So
Mhm.
from the service layer, we are passing let's suppose 4 or 5 parameters to the repository layer with at direct
Mhm.
param values. So those values we need to pass it
Mhm.
into the query in that query whatever queries we are writing. So with double colon operation, we need to get the data which is being passed. So with
Correct.
that actually it will be it can take the data and then it can process it.
Even native queries can take data, right?
Mhm.
They're also at the right param if you specify, it will take the parameters.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, so now let's say you have two entities. Okay, let's talk about let's say employee and department. Okay, let's look at the tables first. Okay, so you have an employee table in the DB and you have a department table in the DB. Okay,
Mhm.
so these two are connected by one foreign key relation, wherein your employee table has a department ID.
Mhm.
Okay, which is nothing but the ID of the department table. Okay,
Okay.
so this is the foreign key relationship that you have.
Okay.
Now, if you have to model it in your JPA layer, okay, so how do you achieve this tying up dependency? Or do you think that even if you have it as two independent entities, that also will work fine?
Yeah. So basically, we can create a entity for employee, and then we can create an entity for department. We can define all the field values in that. Then we
Hmm.
can have at
Okay.
the rate entity and at the rate table, defining of table
Hmm.
names, and then we can have at the rate ID for primary keys, and then
Hmm.
we will be passing at that column and we'll be providing the column name which is associated with the field, and then
Hmm.
same we will be doing for department as well. And then
Okay.
there will be like a department ID, so there will be there also will be writing at that column. So one employee, if it is mapping to one particular department, so we can have like at that one-to-one mapping with employee and department. So
Hmm.
it will map the department ID from employee ID and employee table to that particular
Okay.
department ID. Yeah.
Hmm. So now, uh, this mapping that you just mentioned, right? So do you think that do you need to add mapping on both sides, like on employee side as well as department side, or what would happen if you have it on both sides versus if you have it on one side only?
Yeah, if we are doing from one side basically, then it will save the data for the main where you have written it. Let's suppose you have written one to one from for employee side, so it will save the entity data for employee. It will not save the data for the department basically. So
Okay.
if we are writing from two both side, and then we are writing mapped by, and then we are passing the field
Mhm.
value, so it will, once we are saving the employee table data, and department data will be saved
Mhm.
automatically.
Okay. Okay. So now in my case, I have certain like I have, let's say, mapped on both sides, right?
Mhm.
So now once I have mapped on both sides, um, now let's say I insert a employee record,
Right.
right? So if you're saying that it will be able to insert the data on both sides, so if I say department ID equal to 10 in my employee record, so does it mean that it will try to insert another record in the department table with ID 10?
Now, if it is already there, then how will it insert? So, if it is not there, it's a new record. It will insert in both the
Mhm.
tables.
No, let's say I give a employee ID as 100. Sorry, department ID as 100, which is not there.
Okay.
So should it throw an error or should it include a record in the department table with ID equal to 100?
So that ID is not present already in department, right?
Not present.
Yeah, if not present, then it will try to insert the data. So if the mapping is there,
Okay.
then it will
Mhm.
insert the data in both.
Okay.
We
Okay.
have given mapped by, so it will insert it.
Mm. Okay. Fine. So now, mm, okay. So this is okay. This is fine. I think this will do. Okay. So now, next, let's shift to Java a bit. Okay. Let me think of something. Let's say you want to have a like I mean, these days generally we use all frameworks and all. Okay, let's go back 10 years, and then like when using threads in your application was more like you have to create and maintain the threads, right?
Mhm.
So now let's say you want to submit a job, okay, and then like a single extra thread, one extra thread only, okay, and you need to wait for its completion and get the result out of it, whatever that thread job does. Okay. So
Yeah.
let's say, again, taking our same employee and department example only. Okay. So it's like I want to spawn one thread whenever there is a employee request comes in for insertion. Okay. So I want to spawn the thread and do some validation on the employee. Okay. And I need to get a response back saying that, okay, this employee record is valid. Okay. So you proceed with the insertion. So like that, let's say I have a thread pool of three threads. Okay.
Mhm.
Which will be doing, let's say a burst of employee records come in. Those three threads will be doing the validations. Okay. And returning whether this employee one is valid, employee two is not valid, like that. So I am waiting for the result also. Okay. So in like if you have to maintain those threads, create those threads and maintain it. So how will you do it?
First of all, we need to create a thread pool basically. So we
Mm-hmm.
can create like executor service, executor framework we can make use of.
Okay. Okay.
So executor
Mm-hmm.
service is equal to executors dot new fixed thread pool, like that we can create, and we can pass the
Okay.
size, or like how many threads you want. Three threads will be
Mm-hmm.
passing over there. Then
Okay.
we can have like executor service reference. We can call the submit method over there. So within the
Mm-hmm.
submit method, we can write our own logic. So so whatever logic is been written within that, it will be returned back, and it will be stored in the
Mm-hmm.
future reference. So
Okay.
yeah, so it will be future reference will be getting the data sometime in future. So for that we will make use of future class reference, and then with the help
Mhm.
of get method we will be getting the data. So like that
Okay.
we can process data, I think.
Okay. Okay. So now this thread that you have created, so uh, thread pool, right? So your job will be like, what will be the definition of your job? It will again be a thread which you can submit it to this thread pool, right?
Yeah.
So how will you define it?
So we have to create a separate method, and we have to write a business logic in that. So let's
Mhm.
suppose it implements a callable interface. Then within that
Mhm.
we will be overriding the call method, and then
Okay.
if we want to return anything from that, then we can return the
Mhm.
list of data within the call from the call method, and then we will be
Mhm.
writing the business logic over there, like what processing you want to do, and then
Mhm.
we can return it back, and then we can have like join method we can make use of, so that it will
Mhm.
uh, so that one particular thread will be finished, the task gets over, then another thread will be coming, and then it will process that task. So like that one by one will be processing.
Okay. Just give me a second. Okay. Okay. Fine. So okay. So now the pool is fine. Okay. In Java, basically, like, what is the like difference or use cases of fail fast versus fail safe?
Fail fast means whenever you are trying to modify the existing collection object. So during that operation, you are during the iteration process. Basically, you are trying to modify the collection list. So in that scenario, fail
Mhm.
fast iteration occurs. So you can have like fail safe iteration you can have to avoid that fail fast iteration process. So for that, for array list we can have a copy on write array list. So if we make use of that, then when if we are trying to modify the existing loop of existing list, and we are iterating over that, and we are trying to modify the list by removing or adding certain thing, then in that scenario it will not throw exception like concurrent
Mhm.
modification exception, and it will be a fail safe operation.
Okay. So what do you exactly mean by concurrent modification exception?
Concurrent modification means concurrently you are trying to modify the existing array list. So you are doing the iteration, and the process of going process of iterating through the list of all the objects is going on, and during that process parallelly you are trying to modify the data. Either you are trying to add the data or you are trying to remove the data. So if you are trying to modify it concurrently, so in that scenario it will come concurrent modification exception.
So why do you think that this operation is not allowed? Like in
So it may lead to data
let's
inconsistency. So there is a set of
how.
data in a list. So you
Hmm.
are iterating it and doing some business logic, but parallelly you are trying
Mhm.
to add the data into a list. So it will be like
Mhm.
a dirty read kind of thing can happen. Like some time back, some different list data is coming, and after iteration, some different set of data is coming. So this will lead to data inconsistency.
Okay. So but then uh, if you are telling that this will lead to data inconsistency, then this operation should not be allowed at all, right? I mean, let's consider I am creating my own linked list.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in a linked list, you can always insert data while iterating over it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to, let's say, insert a data in the fifth position. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll
Yeah.
run a loop. I'll go to the fifth index. Then I will move my pointers. Okay. So that the fifth element gets inserted there. Then again, let's say I have two insertions to be done. Okay. At the fifth index, at the 10th index. So I'll iterate over the list and then I'll be able to do it. So why do you think that like only for selected data structure it is not allowed, and then other data structures it is allowed, if you're telling that it will lead to data inconsistency?
Yeah, for linked list actually it is not index based. So the
Uh-huh.
modifying data at a specified location will be faster because it is based upon the address reference of the nodes. But in case of array list,
Uh-huh.
it is internally making use of a resizable array. So it will be
Uh-huh.
index based. So one by one, the data will be moving if we are trying to
Okay.
do the add or delete operation. So it will be slower.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. So array list will be slower, is it? That's why it is like it will not. Okay. Okay. Fine. So and what about okay, copy on array list anyway, it will create a copy. Okay, let's leave that aside. So now in concurrent hash map, what happens?
In
Like
concurrent Hashmap,
concurrent hash map is another fail safe, right? So
yes,
how does
yes.
it maintain the fail safe attribute?
Yeah, so in
What do you
that
think?
basically there will be multiple threads which will be working on the buckets parallelly. So there will be 16
Mm-hmm.
buckets. So there can be 16 threads working parallelly to
Mm-hmm.
acquire the lock on the buckets, and then it will process the thing. So after execution, the lock will be released, and then another thread can acquire the lock on that particular bucket. So like that it will be working.
Okay,
So
so now let's say, I mean, multiple threads is fine. Multiple threads working on different buckets is also fine. Now let's say, so internally, the buckets that you have, that will be like, what is the data structure that is used for the buckets?
So it is making use of linked list basically to store the data in the form of node.
Okay,
So it will
okay.
contain the hash code and the key,
Mhm.
then value, then next node's address. To like that data is
So
stored.
now let's say you are inserting in a uh, concurrent hash map.
Okay,
Okay, one thread is inserting in it. Okay, and another thread is trying to read it.
okay.
So, what do you think happens internally that these two operations are simultaneously allowed?
Mhm. So first, the thread will be trying to write the data, so it will write it. So parallelly, it can read it. So for read operation, there is no certain lock kind of thing is required. For write operation,
Mhm,
basically the lock is will be required. So when there is a write operation, thread will be writing the data. Then parallelly, second
mhm.
thread can come and read the data. There will be no issue.
Okay, okay, fine. Okay, fine. So that is good. Okay, okay. I'll give you a problem statement. Okay, so just give me a like basic algorithm logic for it. Okay,
Okay.
syntax and all is not required. Um, okay, I give you a two by two. Sorry, n cross n two-dimensional array. Okay. So let's say n equal to 4. So 4 cross 4, two-dimensional array you have with numbers. Okay. So I want you to like iterate and print the numbers in that two-dimensional array in a spiral way. Okay. So let's uh, I'll just give you an example. Let me share my screen. Okay. So let's say you have a array of 4 by 4 or 3 by 3. It's fine. Okay. So I have numbers like 10, 20, 30, then 20, 30, 40, 50, then 30, 40, 50, 60, 40, 60, 70. Okay, so I have a 4 cross 4 array. Okay,
Mhm.
so now what I want you to do is you need to iterate it like this. It should be 10, 20, 30, 40. Then it should go down 50, 60, 70. I should come back 60, 50, 40. And again go up 30, 20. Now, since 10 is already visited, you go inside 30, 40, 50, 40. So it's like going in a spiral, right? So it will be like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 60, 50, 40, 20, then again 30, 40, then again 50, then again 40. So it should print it like this. So give me an algorithm which does this.
Okay. Okay, so row wise will go and column wise. First, the row is fixed, column is changing. Then,
Hmm.
then column will be fixed, then row will be changing. But we have to mark it as well, like this is visited. Okay. So we can run a loop first from I equal to
Mhm,
0 to 4, I less
mhm,
than 4, then j equal to 0 till 4.
mhm.
Uh, then basically we'll be going right. So we'll be if j is greater than I, then we'll be printing array at ij, where j is increasing and I will be fixed.
Can you write it down? I mean, can you share your screen and then write it down basically? Let's see.
set as final value. Final will be the fourth column. Then it will put the current last one. Okay, and then it will print the value starting from last till below. So row is increasing. Start from so J is fixed. K will start from I plus 1. Will print A1 and J value 4. Then A2 4, A3 4. It will print till 7. Then after that it will print this. To travel from backward.
Anyway, can you explain like what is the logic that you're thinking?
Yeah, first I'm thinking to print from first column data to last column data. So I've written a loop
Mhm.
from 0 to the last index, and then from
Mhm.
for column I'm writing from 0 to last column. Then I'm
Okay.
checking if j is greater than equal to I, then it will print
Mhm.
the all columns of that particular row because I is 0. So it will go from
So,
for all the columns it will go.
so
So
j is greater than I, meaning then it will print 2, 3, 4.
yeah, A
Oh,
0
1, 2,
0.
3, 4.
Yeah, one two
Okay.
three four.
So if j is 0, it will print. Okay. Okay. It has printed 1, 2, 3, 4. Fine. After that, you have j equal to a dot
Yeah,
0
then
of length.
yeah. So A of 0 dot length is total length here, which is 4.
Total
So
4. Okay.
if reaches the
So,
last index data, then
mm,
assigning k with I plus 1. So k will become 1.
okay.
Then
Okay. So you go to the next one. Okay. So while k not equal to 0. So you do k not equal to 0. So it will just do once, right? I mean, it would have printed what a of k comma j. J is 4. No, sorry, not j. J is not 4. So this is inside the loop. So j equal to 0. So k a of okay,
k
this
is
is
less
inside j equal to 4. Okay, so once j equal to 4, then you have
less
k
than
not equal to
j.
0. So it will print basically uh, 8 in this case, right? It will print 8. Then k is less than equal to j. And then k should be plus plus, right? I mean, it will go in an infinite loop. It is k is less than j, it will never meet.
Uh,
Mhm.
so
So now if is kj, so it will be 3, then it will be 7. Okay, fine. After that again, if you have to, now you'll have to go backwards.
yeah,
This is fine till 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 3, 7.
yeah,
But you'll have to have a generic logic, right?
Yes, yes. It is, I'm thinking of writing a separate, means another loop for that to print it the last one. Because in existing flow it will go from 0 only. I
Hmm.
0 to next time I will become 1. So after this operation I will be changed to 1. So I can't print this one then.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think this is fine. So we have overshot time also. So yeah, I am done from my side. So you have any other question like regarding project or anything else?
Yeah, basically what kind of projects are there?
So basically, ours is a like supply chain solution provider, providing company, right? So
Yeah.
we have various different units. Like we have the planning segment, we have the execution segment, and so on. So I am a part of the planning team. Okay, so in the planning team, what we do is basically we have certain logic written for, let's say, balancing out demand and supply.
Okay.
Okay, so supply chain is all about meeting the demand with the supply, right?
Mhm.
So we have certain things, we have certain orchestrations and all, and then we have various mathematical tools. Now we are introducing machine learning algorithms also to process the data and then come up with the optimal solutions. Optimal solutions as in like optimal numbers for, let's say, where the demand should, where the demand will be generated
Mhm.
based on the forecast of demand, where the supply should be. So we come up with all these numbers based on our algorithmic approaches. Okay,
Okay.
so now since we are introducing machine learning, so they are having different machine learning algorithms also to do that. And then this entire process is basically orchestrated. Okay, so it's like a monthly cadence or a quarterly cadence that they run. Okay, depending on the customer needs.
Okay.
So we have like all these various logics built in different microservices. Okay, so we basically again we deploy our solution to Azure cloud, and we have different microservices which are doing different things. Like
Okay.
we have one microservice, let's say, for this demand forecasting, as I mentioned.
Mhm.
Then you have another microservice which is basically for, let's say, supply related generation of
Mhm.
numbers, right?
Yeah.
So they have business logic and things like that. So we have different things, and then all these things will be collaborated by the different users based on the roles, and also we have role management separately and things like that, right?
Mhm.
So all these things come together as a solution. So we basically work on the Snowflake for transactional data, and we basically keep our configuration data in SQL Server.
Okay.
Okay, so that is how the overall tech stack is.
Okay.
Front end is in React. Okay, so now things are changing slightly. Still is React, but then the overall infrastructure and the things like with respect to, I think the jars and all those things are changing. I am not a UI side guy, so I don't know
Okay.
much about it.
Okay.
So yeah, so net, this is the overall tech stack, and this is what we work on.
Okay. Got it.
So anyway, so it was good talking to you. So I'll just give you a feedback to who was that, Priyanka, I think.
Yeah. Yes.
So they'll get in touch with you for the next set of steps. Okay.
Okay. Okay. So, got it.
Okay. Yeah.
Any
Thanks,
feedback for me?
JP.
Where can I improve?
Yeah, so you can basically just go a little bit deeper into maybe Spring Boot concepts. Okay, so
Okay.
conceptually, okay, so that is
Mhm.
one thing. But then you'll have to like where I at least like when I started working with Spring Boot, because Spring Boot was new to me also,
Mhm.
right? So it's basically like the challenges that you face when you dig deeper is during debugging.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so it will be like you will come up with a you will be faced with a problem where you don't understand basically like what exactly may be causing it.
Mhm.
So that is where the concepts actually, when you can map the concepts to actual implementation, that will be helpful.
Okay.
So this is like from my experience, okay, because
Yes.
I have
Yes.
faced it like for quite some time because I was not into Spring Boot. I was actually not into Spring Framework also.
Okay.
So I was mainly all into like core Java and all, right?
Mhm.
So that is one thing that I faced. And yeah, overall, like
Now,
once you start
how have you increased your knowledge in this basically? Because this custom actuator things actually nobody told, and I didn't got in internet also. So
those are actually like I have like for our application, we had like call it by design, or actually I am not very convinced about the design what we have. Okay,
uh-huh. Okay.
So there we are actually kind of tightly coupled with many different services.
Yes,
Okay, so
yes.
I would say tightly coupled because it doesn't give you a flexibility of like having services. The idea of microservices to have everything independent,
Yes,
right?
yes, correct.
So that independently it's a modular unit. It'll work on its own.
Okay.
Now, if you're tying it with so many different services, I feel that it's better to pull in those logic inside your own service, right?
Yes,
But
yes.
still, like based on the design, we had certain microservices under the same umbrella
Mm-hmm.
where we had to do the health check. Okay,
Yes, yes.
so I was the one of the implementers of this health check logic where
Mm-hmm.
we had to like override the custom health, whatever, override the default health
Okay.
indicator, whatever is provided by the Spring Boot, right? So that's how like I got into things.
Okay.
But then that's what like it's all about how much exposure you get and then what are the different things area you venture into,
Okay.
right? So these are like few areas which generally we don't get into, right? Unless we dig deeper into it.
Yeah.
Like either your application demands it or
Yes, yes.
you keep reading about it.
Yes, yes.
So I prefer keep reading about it, and then when it matches my requirement, then we'll have to
Mm-hmm.
get into implementation. That is how it is.
Okay.
So anyway,
Thank you
that
so
is
much
one
for
thing.
guiding.
Yeah, sure. So I'll give your feedback. Maybe
Okay.
like they'll get back to you in terms of next steps. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
sure. Thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.